Hello and welcome back to my studio once again. We are always here or somewhere else, and those are the only two options. Anyway, I was originally going to record a video talking about my art school experience. That seems to be something that the internet is interested in. They want to know why people go to art school. Was it worth it? Should I go to art school? But while I was doing that, I was looking at some of my college work, and it got me thinking about another kind of topic about what my art looked like then and what it looks like now, and how I felt while I was doing that, and how I feel about my work now, and just kind of as you grow and your art changing, and how you feel about your art compared to your art previously, and how those feelings change. And anyway, so I wanted to go through and maybe just show you guys some of my college work and talk about it, and maybe at the end kind of discuss this like greater feeling I had about it. And I thought it'd be interesting. It's kind of cool to see people's college work. I feel like you get these visions of like figure drawing and perspective and like learning how to draw. And I have none of that. I have figure drawings somewhere lost in the ether, but I mostly have my like conceptual work. So I thought that'd be kind of interesting for the public to see. So anyway, there is a computer here. You can't see on camera, so that's why I'm gonna be looking down. I'm looking at going through, I'm gonna go year by year. So let's dive into freshman year. Freshman year was not a very structured year. It's called Foundations at my school. So you just kind of take a bunch of random classes at rapid fire during the semesters and kind of explore art in general. I think it's great for a semester. I think 2 semesters was maybe too long, and then you don't really start your major till sophomore year, so just another way to bleed you dry of money. And another thing to note is while I'm really good at storing everything I've ever made, freshman year I wasn't exactly super good at that, so there is some work that's lost from freshman year, but to senior year you pretty much kind of have everything. Anyway, let's just get into it. So starting off immediately, freshman year, I will admit I had a fascination with taxidermy and dead animals. And I was in a class called Found Object, and I found a dead dog, and I did make a piece out of it. I don't even know if I can show this on YouTube. Basically, it's this dog corpse I found, and I found these branches, and I spray painted them, and I made this like dirt altar with this like dog, and it's like puking out red leaves and stuff. Very freshman year art. You know, some people do the like, I'm gonna get naked and put paint on my body and have sex with my boyfriend on a tarp. A lot of people do that. I was doing dead dog on the dirt mound. This did have to get the dean involved to see if this was allowed, and it was allowed, so I win. I think it was more about winning at that point for me. There's that. That was like my big controversial piece from that year. And then there's some traditional stuff. I was doing some painting and ink and watercolor. I think a lot of the pieces here from a class called Brain Dump, where basically you can just do whatever you want. But yeah, just a lot of like abstract, watercolory, just animal stuff. I was really into gold foil, really moody, dark stuff, obnoxious colors. This buffalo coyote one's pretty neat. This is kind of me exploring gouache and ink mixed together. And this is probably more similar to what I do today, but I quit doing traditional art after freshman year. We'll see that later, but this was like a really big piece that I did and I was super proud of. My anatomy's kind of whack and my ability to paint wasn't all there yet, but I think the concept is interesting. And then I did some prank art for a minute. That was a weird time where we put this disgusting pizza out and we just waited and watched people try and eat it, or they'll lift the lid up and be disappointed. I also did a really dumb joke that was considered an assignment that I turned in, where I put a chair that said liberal arts chair on it, and I put it in the spot where it says reserved for liberal arts chair. So hilarious, I know. But yeah, freshman year was mostly being mad at the world and my professors and doing like really weird shit. I think it's just like you let basically children, adults loose, and they go forth and make the stuff that they were, you know, I don't even know. Don't even tell you. It's like adult children making the dumbest shit that they think is like revolutionary. So moving into sophomore year, we chose our majors, and I chose game design foolishly. There's really nothing to show from that. My idea was that I would be a concept artist, but the game design program at that school was basically non-existent, and it was kind of a scam that they even let people join that. But I did have some art from, I took an illustration elective course because you have to take a certain amount of electives and certain things, and I just chose the illustration one, and there's some stuff in here, which you can kind of see. I was moving more into digital art because I was like, I'm gonna be a concept artist, so I was copying like Guild Wars and stuff. So here's this edgy Balto poster. I think the assignment was to take a movie and change the genre, so I made Balto into a horror film. I actually like this poster, this is kind of cool. I would probably go to the theater and see this one. So that's my Balto one, very like concept art of the time. Things were like really fragmented and abstract, like not a bunch of hard details, things like that. And then I did some concept art for this class where I made up a game and like the lore for it and the character and stuff, and it's called Gem of Ot. I think the idea was it was some gem or something that he had to get that like had a curse on it. I don't even fucking remember what the concept for this game was, but I thought the character was cool. But yeah, very Guild Wars inspired. I was kind of like making character sheets based off of what I thought character sheets should look like. I didn't actually understand like what I was putting on it at the time, if I'm being honest. Some environment design. I was really bad at making environments, but I knew I had to do them if I wanted to be a concept artist, so I did some of that. But yeah, nothing to show from game design because it was mostly like, I think the only thing we did was this really embarrassing video game trailer. It was like, come up with a video game idea and make a trailer for it, which I don't know how that's relevant to game design. I'm supposed to be designing the games, like doing stuff like that, but I'm making the trailer, which feels like more like a marketing thing. I hesitate to even show any part of this trailer. Maybe on my Patreon you can see the trailer, it's disturbing. Moving on, so second semester I transfer out of game design because it's a scam, and also the professor just didn't show up ever again, so we just didn't have a professor in studio. So I switched to illustration because in my illustration elective they're like, okay, come over here, and I said, okay, I'll do that. But yeah, still thinking, even though I'm in illustration, I'm still gonna be a concept artist for a minute, so I'm still doing like a lot of concept stuff. Like I did this like Gemsbach. I don't even remember what the assignment was, but I had this idea for these like 4 elemental creatures and then like design their humanoid form. So I did like, oh, it's an oryx and the seal, which I don't think we can blur out her titties, but I did that. And I don't think I ever finished the other 2. At this point, freshman to sophomore year, I haven't really found my style yet or anything, so I'm just kind of doing digital art and exploring and trying to figure out what it is I'm even doing, but I am drawing quite a bit. Outside of art, let's see what we got in the studio. So yeah, sophomore year, I remember now, because I transferred in late, in kind of, not late, but like I transferred in past the start of the second semester, so I kind of like was lagging behind on some of the assignments, so I don't have a ton of work from this still either. But for this, I'm still thinking, yeah, so I'm still drawing like a concept artist, but we went to a bunch of different locations and I had to make a piece based on that location. So we visited the ballet and I made this like disgusting, because I was like thinking, I'm like, ballerinas' feet are gross because of all of like the stuff they do. So I don't know why I focused on that idea. So I had that, and yeah, I mean, we can go over these all day, but yeah, it's a lot of like concept arty stuff. This cat with like, I think we went to the Boulevard Brewery, so I'm like, I'll just do a brewer's cat, like trying to turn everything I can into a concept art moment. We went to Harley Davidson, and so I made this like game loading title screen of a motorcycle gang situation, maybe like GTA for animals. Anyway, moving on to, so junior year is kind of where I start finding more of my style. I think at this point I'm kind of abandoning the game concept design dream, which it wasn't really even a dream, it was just something I chose and thought that would make money. So I think I'm starting to abandon that during this year, and also abandoning digital art. I'm still doing a lot of digital art, but I'm starting to do watercolor as well, and I'm also doing like ink drawings and then scanning it and coloring it digitally. So this is a lot more disorganized, but this year consisted of classes where we're learning like design stuff, how to do like, it's called covers and pages, but it's like basically comics and book covers and narrative storytelling structures and things like that. And then I also had an internship. I don't think we're gonna go over all my internship work because that was a lot. So yeah, let's just see what's in here. So at the top of this folder is my Sylview book cover. This was an assignment where basically they're like, take your dog's first name and the street you grew up on, and that's your author name, and then pick 5 paint chips out of this box, and you can only use the paint chip colors, and you have to pick one of the paint chip colors as the title of your book, or at least incorporate it into the title of your book. So mine was Max Midland. My childhood dog's name was Max, and I lived on Midland Drive. And I had chosen a paint chip color called Sylview, and I just thought that felt like a unique title. And when you Google it, nothing comes up but like it's street in Delaware. And I was pretty loose with the idea of you only use the paint chip colors because they said you could use tones of it. So I'm like, well, if I just get like a red color, a blue color, green color, I can use any tone I want. So I was cheating a bit, so it doesn't really look like I have a limited palette, but it doesn't matter. But the idea of this book was kind of, what if like 2 serial killer dudes were on some kind of weird road trip and they were in a relationship or something? It was really edgy and lame, but it kind of stuck with me because it ended up being my thesis later to do this book, and I actually finished it, and I can show that here in a minute. So we did some like concert posters, and at this time I was doing a lot of like Beastie stuff. I really liked Father John Misty, and Stacy Rosich did the album art cover for Father John Misty, and I just like fell deeply in love with that style. Like it's like something in my brain snapped, and I'm like, that's it. That's like the meaning to life, is this artist and her style, which inspired me to go back to watercoloring. So I was kind of copying her a little bit, doing like the weird beast thing and like getting goofy and kind of loose with things. So this poster definitely was a part of that. And then we had a comic class, which I did very loosely. A lot of my comics had no words and were very short and more about like an action or a vibe instead of actually telling a story, which, you know, kind of defeats the point of being a comic. But so this dog one is a version of that where it's like, I think the idea for this was to do a 3-panel comic, and I counted this as 3 panels. I actually think it's a cool piece, but I don't think it reads as a comic. I don't even know what the fuck's happening here, but it's cool. Some other comic stuff. This one's a little more narrative. Again, doing digital. I did a lot of digital with the comic book class because I didn't really care about it at the time. I wanted to do stuff quick and get out of the way, and I felt like doing traditional work to make these comics would be really laborious. But I was really obsessed with the idea of the Arctic during this time. So this is like a Malamute, and I guess it was wounded and then it dies. And I remember the time being really proud. I figured out how to make the environment look like an aurora borealis. So more comic stuff, not my most creative stuff, but I'm seeing like in my other work, like we did this album cover that I was super stoked on, where we're supposed to pick a like random vinyl from some box and then redesign the cover. I didn't even listen to the music. I don't think it was required to make it match that much, but I just like redid the cover for it and then like made it look all like 90s retro or whatever. I still think this is really cool. I feel like this is where kind of I'm starting to find my style and voice that felt really cool. And even today I'm like, man, I should draw more of that. I should bring some of that like weirdness back into my art, because I feel like I've gone so far in one direction that it's not weird anymore. But anyway, so this is like where it's starting to get weird and stylized and cool, and like drawing like weird hands and stuff. What else do we got? Yeah, so this is like the big comic book class. So like I said, I did a lot of digital stuff for this. I was also like, going through weird breakups and stuff with people. So it was very moody in a lot of these comics. I was like interjecting my own feelings, but I was still doing more stylization and exploring like tattoo art stuff. I think I was doing my tattoo internship or about to around this time period. So yeah, I did a lot of murder stuff. This is like a comic about this boar with a photo and a head in their lap, and they're like chilling with the head, and they are holding the head, and then they put it down, they look at the photo, and it's like, I guess they were friends at some point. Pretty fucking obvious that it's what's that about? So continuing on, another comic. I actually did this one in colored pencil. It's almost basically the same exact idea, but it's like, oh, I'm sad, but now we're kissing, and then I rip your face off, and then I just put my socks on, and I'm walking, and I go into the jungle, and I eat my own hands. I actually like this one. But yeah, the like weird stylization of like these jaguars, and like just the rawness of like, I clearly don't understand perspective and anatomy very well, but just drawing it anyway, something about that feels really nice. And just like the jungly stuff, like made up plants, I don't even know what these plants are. Yeah, I kind of miss that like freeness, and I feel like part of that was just forced urgency of turning in assignments. So you kind of lose that when you have all the time in the world to do what you gotta do. What else we got here? We're not gonna go over the clearly furry comic that I subjected my class to. That was embarrassing. That was probably like my last bastion of furriness left in me. Learning how to make more thumbnails during this time period. I didn't really do thumbnails. It was like I was forced to do thumbnails, but I would like know what idea I wanted to do, and I'd make up a bunch of thumbnails around it and then just choose the one I originally was gonna do anyway. But I'm learning how to like genuinely do thumbnails at this time. That's like, see if there's a good example. Yeah, like this covers and pages one was a good example of like learning how to do thumbnails. I felt like these ideas, like I feel like I just had ideas, you know? But I had this like weird obsession with the desert and the tundra. I almost drew a person. On this thumbnail, I was like, you know what? I might draw a person. And I didn't do it. Bitched out. But anyway, the covers and pages design I chose was this one. I think it's cool. I'm still annoyed they didn't choose it because the one they chose I think was pretty ass ugly. But what do you do? Hey, what do you do? It was at least inside the book. It was chosen as like one of mine was chosen as like a inlet cover, so I'm like, whatever. You win some, you lose some. Let's see. Oh my God, we did so much art junior year. Here's another example of like something I started doing traditionally, but like finding more of a style with it. I really like this Run of Coyotes thing where I did it in like colored pencil and then I colored it digitally. I'm not really good at like font or text, but I thought this was okay. I'm still not very good at it. I just accept that it's something I'm never gonna be. I'm not much of a designer. Graphic design is not my passion. But anyway, I thought this like coyote design was cool, and it's like just this like weird, more abstract version of a coyote instead of like a literal coyote, a lot more cartoony, things like that. We did a book cover. This is another one I really liked because I felt like this would be a comic or a book that I would actually like to read still or make. But also you can see the like angst oozing through this. It's called This Is the Worst, and the reviews are very good. She should kill herself. Most depressing novel of the year. I wish I could take back the time I lost reading this book. I actually would unironically, it would be fun to make this a comic, but then keep those exact reviews. The original idea for this book, which like, I didn't have to have an idea for the book. It was more just they said design like a concept for a book or whatever. But the concept I made was like, there's cat people, and then there's this one cat who is just kind of violent and weird. It was really just inspired by cat soup, if I'm being honest. But I drew this cat a lot in my sketchbooks during that time, and I did a lot of the red lining you see there in my sketchbook. But I always drew this cat with like the black top and the black lips. And I really like the drinking out of the toad thing. I just feel like it's ideas like that I kind of lack lately, of just like, why not? I don't do enough like what if things, like what if they did this weird thing. So I really liked that when I was going through my work. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up junior year, but we just learned a lot of like product design. We did a lot of collab stuff. We did a lot of zines. There's just a ton of crap. I can't go through everything. I have my internship. We had a semester where we just did a project ourselves. That was a whole fucking thing. So that was junior year. Junior year was a lot of work. Definitely finding my style, finding watercoloring, trying to experiment and copy things. And now we move to senior year, where I have officially abandoned pretty much all digital art and am exclusively a watercolor artist at this time. We didn't make as much work senior year because a lot of it was more focused on your thesis. So there was some work in there that I did, but I mostly was focusing on my thesis, which was Sylview, which I did finish, not during the school year though. I changed how Sylview worked a couple times, and I came to the conclusion of how it would be after college. It was a project I genuinely wanted to do, I just could not finish it. But I did finish it 5 years later. It just took me 5 years, which is ridiculous for what this is. It should not have taken 5 years. It really was more just a buildup of 5 years. It was like from senior year to when I finished it. Was it 5 years? I guess if you count junior year when I kind of started it. Yeah, it took 5 years. It took 5 years from conception to publishing. But I did finish it, and the end concept was this. And I think if you remember the cover I showed you before, this is much different. There's no color in this. The concept is totally different. This ended up being, I was writing a lot of poetry at the time, which I don't do anymore. I'm better now, but I was writing poetry. So it's a poetry book mixed with a comic. And they're not about each other, but I feel like the vibe kind of bounced off each other as you read it. I'm actually pretty proud of this still. I read it occasionally and I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as I remember, but they'll be like, let's see, let's find a good spread. But it's in like sections where like the comic itself goes from like, I mean, the general idea of the comic is a girl is being chased by a black dog kind of demon thing, and the poetry is just more moody. And it goes from like this beginning part to this like more dreamlike middle part, and then it ends in more of like a confident way. So it starts pretty pathetic, dream state, then confidence, whatever. But it would be stuff like this, where it's like comic with unrelated poetry. Zoom in, freaking focus. But yeah, it'd be like poetry with comic on side, but it's kind of all like that. So, and then there's some comic spreads, but it's all in black and white. I did this digitally to save time and also just get it done and size it correctly and things like that. So this was supposed to be my thesis, but I never finished it senior year. But that's kind of what I worked on all year with nothing to show for it until now. But there is a couple things from senior year where it's more like the style I kind of had a couple years after college and evolving to now is like where this started. So I did this poster for a visiting artist where it's like make a travel poster. So I chose Alaska. So I used kind of the new style I was doing and the watercoloring, and also kind of taking influence from how the Pacific Northwest culture's art looked, which I was also just inspired by in general. It did not win the visiting artist, sadly. And there's a visiting artist twice a year, so you have 2 chances to win, and you get to go to dinner with the visiting artist, but I did not win that one. And then I was the second visiting artist. I did win, which I worked really hard on this, so I'm glad I won, but it was designing a vinyl album, like the band name, the CD, like how the vinyl looks, the cover, and then you mock up a physical. Actually, I think I have the physical because I was so proud of it. Where is it? It's like probably right in front of my face, and I know it's in here, and I think it'd be really cool to show because it has a 3D element to it. Well, this is disappointing. I don't know where it is. Unless it's in my flat file for whatever reason. Oh, yep, I found it. Okay, we're all good. I don't need to have a meltdown. So I made the physical version of my vinyl that won, and it's called Cattle Dog, and the album is called On a Broken Horse. And I hand painted, well, this isn't hand painted, but I painted all of the elements, and it's like the devil playing his fiddle and a cattle dog with a leg in his mouth. And if you turn it around, there's the cows he's chasing, and like it's like taped on what the like soundtracks are. And when you open it, it's like 3D horses. So like, boom, horses. And yeah, so I thought that was really cool that I even thought to do that. And it's one of those double vinyl things. And the vinyls aren't as cool. I'll pop on the screen like what I wanted the vinyls to look like, but I just worked with what I had. But I did still cut out the little circle designs. So they have different designs on each side for the A and B, but it's supposed to be a double disc. So that's why you can open it. And I thought this was like one of my best things I've ever done. And I think conceptually and like storytelling wise is the strongest. So that's why I've kept it so long. And I think it's one of my best mock-ups. But yeah, just like really solidifying like what I'm about and what I like and enjoy and kind of fuck with, if you will. But then other than that, other than doing my thesis, which was just Sylview, in that I did a lot of like personal drawing that wasn't college related, but I was a part of this like small, what was it called? There's like a small studio you can apply to senior year, or I think junior and senior year, but I think senior year to be a part of, where you like do kind of real client work, and I got into that. So I did like client work stuff, and you would basically all submit your designs, and like the design that was the best was chosen, but you would like present to real clients, basically just people who are like, I want free design work, so I'm gonna let these college students do it, and it was good practice for that. So I did a couple of those designs, but I'm just gonna show the car wrap because I feel like that was my best work. Actually, I'll show that. And then there was this like banner thing where it's supposed to be a triptych. So for the car design, it was supposed to be a Mini Cooper, and it's supposed to be for a car show. So 3 designs would get chosen, and they would wrap the Mini Coopers, and there'd be like this contest to like promote the Mini Cooper or whatever. So I did 3 designs and submitted one. So I did this like cabin one, which I thought was cool. And then I did this like weird 3D design leopard wolf jungle thing. I don't know what the idea was here. But then this one was the one I submitted, and I felt like it was the strongest concept. And it's like on the roof would be a grizzly, and then there would be salmon running all around the car. So like you really wouldn't know the grizzly was there, but it's like a nice detail. But then the salmon around it are like, it's like a salmon run. So I did that, and I submitted the idea, and it won. So I got the car wrap. So I have a picture of them actually with the car, and then it got submitted to the show, and it won at the show. So that was like one of my first big wins. So I did that car wrap, and then I did this trio, which this was like one of my favorite designs I've ever done. I was really into chupacabras and this idea of this like pig dog design with like these Renaissance wings. Just really doing a lot of stylized, blocky, geometric stuff. And to be honest, a lot of it was because I did not know anatomy very well. So it was me covering up my ability to do backgrounds in anatomy by making everything look flat and geometric. But I really like this triptych, these like goats and the chupacabra in the middle. And this chupacabra actually is the first painting I ever sold at my senior show. So that's cool, I guess. So that is it. That is my college work from freshman to senior year. A lot of weird, just all over the place junk freshman year, just getting out the vomit of wanting to be creative and exploring what I'm even trying to do as an artist. And that was kind of just more of like, let's just try anything and everything and explore what I'm even interested in. Sophomore year was a little weird because of the game design thing, but I feel like I was really kind of clicking creatively with like the weird things I liked. I grew up pretty, not sheltered, but I just didn't watch a lot of TV or media. I didn't like cable, and I moved around a ton, so I wasn't really in a place where like I had cable or could watch things, so I wasn't privy to a lot of the cultural things and things like that. So I feel like I was really discovering what I even liked outside of like the furry community and Tumblr and whatever, and I feel like Tumblr kind of was feeding me what I maybe enjoyed. And then junior year, I was kind of really solidifying who I was as a person and what I liked. I was really getting into like hiking and nature and kind of getting that like, I feel like from like 19 to like 20 something, you're really politically charged and trying to like prove something. So I feel like I was kind of getting into that, but like the nature aspect, and like I had this fantasy about running away from the Midwest and going to like the North or the Southwest desert or something. So doing a lot of art around that, but then also full of just like a lot of anger and depression and not really like kind of learning how to interact with other people and have relationships with people. So just like channeling a lot of that energy and anger, and like there's a lot of like murderous themes and hand eating, just like violent stuff, because I was really not a very outspoken or violent person in general, but like kind of like drawing it feels like, I don't know, it just felt like an outlet, I guess. And I also thought the imagery was like cool and edgy. And then just senior year, kind of keeping that vibe going. If I look at that year on my like personal work, I did a lot more personal work that year that kind of was this like female empowerment, murdering, kind of ambiguous, kind of creepy, cute scenes. I really liked the idea of like cute, creepy, like it looks like a normal picture, but then you see blood and some ambiguous thing and you don't really know what happened, but you feel like it's violent, but it's not. And I really liked that kind of imagery, and I felt like everything I did was really kind of weird. It was very geometric and blocky, and the perspectives and like the way the anatomy worked didn't make sense. Like their chest would be over here, but their body would be the other way. Their mouths didn't really make sense. Like everything would fit in their mouth in like a flat way. But it was very like freeing to do it that way, but also it came from a lot of insecurity. So as I learned to draw better and I did a little more like life studying and stuff, I've gone more into this more grounded art area, I guess, where everything feels more realistic. There's less weird things going on. There's less made up creatures. There's less made up anatomy. There's less, it feels less stylized. And sometimes I look at my current art and I think, am I boring now? Like, am I boring because I guess I know how to draw better and I'm happier? That's something I've kind of asked myself, is like, I don't have the insatiable urge to just rapidly make tons of paintings all the time, and they're not as weird either. So it's like, am I boring now because I am happy and secure, so the things I'm painting about aren't so weird and they're not like this emotional vomit? So I've kind of had that question looking back at my college work and kind of missing that creativity that just felt like it came so natural. Like that version of me had such an interest in things that I'm not as interested in now. And I guess really what I've concluded is it's not even that my current work's bad, it's just different. And I feel like I just had to go through that phase, and now I'm moving into this phase where I'm rediscovering this version of myself that's not depressed and not insecure and understands how to talk to people. It's like I went from this unsocialized, rabid dog to a more confident, non-reactive dog that'll walk on a leash nicely and doesn't bite people's hands when it reaches for their food. I feel like that's where I'm at right now. I'm just rediscovering what it even is, like what kind of art am I even making as someone who isn't just vomiting emotion and is actually kind of creating work that has more meaning that I think more people can relate to, instead of just a lot of like anger. So that's kind of, I guess, what I wanted to talk about, was kind of evolving and changing. And does that make you boring just because you're not depressed? I feel like that's the stereotype, is that artists are depressed, like the Van Gogh thing. And do they make their best work when they're depressed? And are they washed up whenever they don't? This movie's not good, or at least in my opinion was not very good, called like The Velvet Buzzsaw. But there's a similar theme in that, where the artist in it, he was an alcoholic and everyone loved his work, and everyone loved it when he was an alcoholic, and then he gets sober and he can't make work anymore that's good. So he goes away and he has to rediscover why he even enjoyed making art in the first place, and he starts making art in the sand that'll never last, and it gets washed away, but he was genuinely like filled with inspiration in that moment. I feel like that's kind of me in a way. That is literally so me. I am John Malkovich. Was that him? I don't know. Bald guy. So anyway, that's all I had. I just wanted to talk about that, about how I'm not as depressed anymore and how I'm kind of insecure about how boring my art might be because of that. But I'm excited to see where maybe I go from here, because I feel like making art when you're happy is actually more sustainable, because being depressed forever just to make art feels unsustainable and a bummer. And if you're happy in making art, then that's just kind of what you'll just be able to build on that forever. So I'm looking forward to that moment. It's just right now I'm climbing up the new mountain. It's like I climbed up that mountain, And then I found the new peak, and now I've got to climb up that mountain. Anyway, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed seeing my college work. Not a lot of figure drawings to look at, sadly. We weren't really taught how to draw at my school. We had some classes like that, but we were mostly taught how to ideate and how to make concepts, which I am not really against. Now that I'm older, I kind of appreciate that more because I can learn anatomy on my own. I feel like I'm capable of that. So anyway, that's it. I guess I'll go get the cat wherever he's at. Rocky? Oh, he's right there. I've been yelling at you and you're just standing there like, what? Bitch, what do you want? Here is the Rocky Tex. He is here. And we don't know if he's queer, cause he's a cat. Here he is in all his beautiful glory, and he gives you one squinty eye for good luck. Anyway, bye! You stink. Why do you stink?